I had too much to drink at a business dinner and, in a daze, fumbled for my phone and shoved it into the client's hands. "You have to watch me," I slurred. "Don't let me call Tim Vance." The client's face lit up with gossip. "Tim Vance? Your ex-boyfriend?" I drunkenly snarled back. "Ex-boyfriend? He's not my ex, he's a spineless bastard who won't own up to his shit." When I woke up the next day, I was staring at a message from the client's CEO, rubbing my messy hair in disbelief. The deal, which I'd only had a slim chance of closing, was a go. I scrambled to shower, change, and rushed to the restaurant we'd agreed to meet at. Strangely, Evan, who had been completely indifferent to me yesterday, actually came to the entrance to greet me. I was flattered, to say the least. After some polite small talk, he chose his words carefully and began. "Ava, I have a major client I'd like to introduce you to. If you can land this account, you'll be able to lock down at least." He held up 2 fingers. I was thrilled, but I couldn't help but be suspicious. Evan came from a wealthy family. He was a classic trust fund kid. Why would he be connecting me with his contacts? "Your looks, obviously." My best friend grabbed my shoulders, her expression dead serious. "The only thing you have that's worth anything is that face and that body." I just smiled and gently shook my head. Evan grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth. He's seen every kind of beautiful woman there is. After I changed into my evening gown, my best friend's eyes went wide. "Ava, if I were a man, there's no way I'd let you walk out that door tonight." I rolled my eyes at her. "You're exaggerating." She found me a pair of high heels to put on and sighed. "What do you think allowed you to have that epic romance with the great Tim Vance back in the day?" It had been a long time since anyone had mentioned Tim. I froze, and my voice softened. "Don't be ridiculous. We were never actually together." On the way to the hotel, I stared blankly at the glittering lights outside the window. It had been almost 7 years since Tim and I went our separate ways. Even my best friend, who had been with me through it all, thought I had long since forgotten him. I lifted a hand to cover my tired eyes and forced a small smile. If only I could forget. If I could, I wouldn't have spent the last 7 years terrified of getting drunk. By the time I got out of the car, I had pulled myself together, a bright smile fixed on my face. Evan was already waiting for me and gallantly offered his arm. I took it, straightening my back. Whether this was a trap or not, I had to be here. My company was only a few years old, and just as we were finalizing our core business, several of New York's most aggressive conglomerates had moved into our sector with lightning speed. The business was on the brink of collapse. I couldn't afford to miss a single opportunity. In this world of wealth and fame, everyone wore a practiced smile. I held my wine glass like it was my last chip on the table. Evan didn't introduce me to the major client he'd mentioned. Instead, he stood around laughing with a few other rich kids who looked like nothing but trouble. Amid the clinking glasses, their gazes fell on me, sizing me up. It was unsettling. I frowned, let go of Evan's arm, and excused myself to go to the restroom, finding a quiet corner to stand in and avoid their group. Suddenly, a commotion swept through the ballroom. The rug at the entrance was rolled up and replaced with a new one. The half-eaten buffet was cleared away, replaced with fresh fruit platters. Expensive champagne was hastily thrown into the trash, and in its place appeared an assortment of fine teas. Even the wine glass in my hand was taken from me. The server seemed so nervous that his voice was stiff. "Ma'am, please give me your glass. There can be no smell of alcohol in the ballroom." I was secretly stunned. What kind of ridiculously high-maintenance VIP was about to arrive to make everyone act like the sky was falling? After the initial stir, the hall fell quiet again. But I could sense the powerful undercurrents moving beneath the calm surface. Everyone seemed to be chatting pleasantly, but hundreds of pairs of eyes were glued to the closed double doors. Finally, the doors swung open. It wasn't some prince arriving on a red carpet like I'd imagined. It was just a few more rich guys. 2 in black suits walked in front, while one in a trench coat followed behind, flanked by the hotel's owner and manager. He just looked a lot more serious than the other heirs, and a whole lot better looking. A crowd swarmed him, holding up teacups as if toasting him, like die-hard fans at a meet and greet, cautious, but not daring to get too close and block his path. My view was blocked, and I lost interest, turning away. But a strange woman suddenly grabbed my wrist and dragged me forward. "Didn't you say you knew Mr. Vance? Go say hello." It happened so fast that I didn't have time to react. I stumbled, and if it weren't for a kind soul catching me, I would have ended up on my knees. The room went dead silent. Countless eyes landed on me, sharp as needles. Clutching my dress where the zipper had just burst, I looked up and straight into a pair of indifferent but painfully familiar eyes. In that instant, it was as if time had stopped. My mind went blank, and I just stood there, frozen. Of all the ways I had imagined our reunion, who could have predicted it would happen like this, in such a humiliating way? I quickly looked down, terrified of seeing mockery or contempt on his face. Get out of here. It was the only thought left in my crumbling sanity. Just as I tried to stand up, a suit jacket was draped over my shoulders. The man with the earring glanced behind him, then looked back at me with a meaningful smile. "Take Mr. Vance's old friend here to my private lounge to change. And take good care of her." The crowd erupted in whispers. Their gazes were a mix of shock and suspicion. Even if I was an idiot, I understood now that I'd been set up. But I had no time to figure out who was behind it. All I could think was, "It's over. I broke our promise." When Tim and I parted ways, it was ugly. We promised to stay out of each other's lives forever. Everyone thought we'd had some epic romance. But the truth was, we were never actually together. Tim would never say the words, so I couldn't exactly call myself his girlfriend. The rumor mill said that I was just some bad girl from a small town who'd latched onto a rich kid and refused to let go. That I wanted him to take me to New York with him. It got so bad that Tim's stepmother, Mrs. Vance, came all the way out to see me, to persuade me to give up. There weren't many cafes or restaurants in our little town. Mrs. Vance booked the largest hotel and wiped down her chair 3 times with an alcohol wipe before she would even sit. "Miss Lynn, you're a smart girl. You should know why I'm here." I'd had this conversation with so many people. "Tired," I said softly, "I know. I won't bother him." Mrs. Vance had come prepared for a fight and was surprised by how reasonable I was. She was speechless for a moment, then simply took out a pre-written check and placed it in front of me. "Take it. This is compensation from the Vance family. All you have to do is never appear in Tim's life again." After she left, Tim came to see me one last time. "The check my mom gave you, did you take it?" I gave a small smile. "I did. You people are all so generous, one after another. How could I not be tempted?" Tim stared at me, his brow furrowed. "Ava, I still hope you'll listen to me. Go to college in Boston, get a job and stay there. I've already arranged everything for you. When I graduate and come back." "When you graduate and come back, then what?" I looked at him, my eyes stinging, fighting back tears. "We just continue on like this, with no name for what we are?" Tim was always reserved, never showing his emotions. Even as I questioned him hysterically, his expression didn't change. He would just look at me quietly and say, "We can't be together." Hearing those familiar words again, my hand trembled as I slapped him hard across the face. "Tim Vance, you got your wish. From now on, we're strangers. Let's never see each other again." And after that, we really didn't. New York is a city of glitz and glamour, a dazzling metropolis. It's surprisingly hard to run into one specific person. I waited anxiously in the lounge and accidentally fell asleep. When I was woken up, it was already 1 in the morning. Tim wasn't there, only the man with the earring who had given me his jacket. "I'm Alex. Your man's best friend." Alex introduced himself smoothly, giving me a wink. "You're the girl Tim mutters about in his sleep, aren't you?" I froze, a bitter taste rising from my heart to my tongue. I'm not. You've got the wrong person. Tim didn't like me. Why would he be thinking about me? Besides, so many years had passed. He'd probably forgotten me long ago. Alex sized me up, muttering to himself, "You look just like the picture, though." I couldn't have gotten it wrong. He then asked, "Is your hometown in that little county up north?" I nodded. Alex's face lit up. "Then it's definitely you." One time, Tim got completely wasted and went crazy, insisting we had to go to that town to find someone. I drove him all the way there in the middle of the night, and the psycho barely stepped out of the car before he wanted to leave again. I was so pissed. Tim went back. What did he go back for? My heart started pounding uncontrollably. Suddenly, a calm male voice came from outside the door. "Mr. Sue, our boss says you're being very loud." Alex choked. Fine, I'll keep it down. Don't want to get in the way of him defending his girl." He leaned in conspiratorially and whispered to me. "Hey, you gotta tell me, is Tim a virgin? Me and the guys have had a bet going for 5 years and we still don't have a winner." I was already a nervous wreck, and his question completely threw me. I asked instinctively, what? Alex was getting desperate, but he didn't dare say the word. "You know, has he done it?" A cold, deep voice cut in suddenly. "Alex, get out." I snapped my head up to see Tim, dressed in a white button-down, the buttons undone, a blanket draped over his arm. He was looking at me coolly. Alex scrambled out of the room. I didn't dare speak, my mind still on the slap I'd given him when we broke up. I was afraid he'd hold a grudge and get revenge. As I sat there anxiously, the jacket on my shoulders was suddenly pulled away. My skin chilled at the cool air, and I shivered. The man's shadow fell over me, and even the gentle pine scent from his clothes felt domineering and aggressive. I kept backing away, my voice trembling. "There are people here." He paused, his eyes fixed on my face, his voice cool. "Is there something indecent about covering you with a blanket?" From a teenager to a man, Tim Vance has always been completely clueless about romance. We met in my hometown, a small county in the south. In 2012, the tides of the era finally washed over our 38th-tier town. In an age where everyone was listening to Gangnam Style and talking about the end of the world, this quiet boy in white Nike sneakers appeared in our colorless world, as silent and striking as snow we'd never seen before. Tim was handsome. His skin was fair, his eyelids thin, his lips thin. His eyes were dark pools, and his face was always expressionless. It was as if the world could actually end and he wouldn't even blink. The guys thought he was stuck up. The girls thought he was impossibly hot. Tim instantly replaced the most popular male celebrities to become the school's #1 heartthrob. A lot of people tried to get close to him. But I was not one of them. I lived with my grandma. My parents were divorced, and both tried to make up for it with money. With no one to watch me and plenty of cash, I was reckless in a fight. I was wild, and I'd fought my way to the top of the local delinquent hierarchy. If you asked who the most famous person at Northwood High was, others might say Tim Vance. I'd just tell you to go ask around about Ava Lynn. Fake tough met real tough on the school rooftop. Fake tough was holding a cigarette, real tough was holding a book. Our eyes met. I recognized him as the school's hottest guy. I spread my school jacket on the ground and tossed the book on it as a pillow. Don't get the wrong idea, I'm not a good student. Just here to nap. You do you. I closed my eyes for a second, then sat up again. Got an extra? I can pay. The boy leaning against the railing glanced at me, his jaw clenching with a soft click. When he didn't answer, I frowned. Are you mute? Tim still didn't speak, just stepped past me. So he was going to play hard to get? I gritted my teeth, my temper flaring. Suddenly, something fell from the sky and landed on my jacket. I picked it up. It was a lollipop. When I looked back, the boy was gone. I squeezed the lollipop and clicked my tongue. I knew I shouldn't have stayed up all night reading. Now my eyes were playing tricks on me. I casually tossed the lollipop in my pocket and didn't think much of it. That night, on my way to the internet cafe, I was cutting through the alley where all the lowlifes hung out when I stumbled upon some business going down. I didn't want any trouble and was about to take a detour when I caught a glimpse of a white shirt cuff. The boy stood there with a cold expression, getting pushed around by a few smirking punks. The contents of his bag were scattered all over the ground. A lollipop fell into a puddle. He bent down to pick it up, but one of the punks kicked it into the gutter. Wasting food. I couldn't stand for that. What's with all the noise this late at night? I walked in impatiently, planting myself in front of Tim. Blondie, didn't you borrow money from me last week? You still haven't paid me back. Are you trying to rob this guy to pay me? Blondie gave me a fawning smile. No way, Ava. Everyone knows you hate this kind of stuff. I'll get you the money right away. I jetted my chin out. Then what are you waiting for? Get lost. Once they were all gone, I picked up the bag and handed it to him, along with a few coins. For the lollipop I owe you. Business handled, I turned to leave. Suddenly, he called out. Are they really afraid of you? The boy's voice was quiet. I raised an eyebrow and curved my lips into what I thought was a cool, wicked smile. You can ask around. At Northwood High, there isn't a punk on the streets who doesn't know the name Ava Lynn. Tim's eyes were clear. He pulled a few bills out of a book. Can you help me with this kind of trouble? $50 a day. I scoffed. Don't you know the one thing your girl Ava doesn't need is money? 100. I snatched the bills and plastered on a sycophantic grin. You got it. From now on, in this town, you're number one, and I'm number two. I thought making money off Tim would be easy. Who knew the hardest part wouldn't be the punks, but his obsessive fangirls? I couldn't just yell at them, and I couldn't hurt them. The biggest headache of all was the principal's daughter from the class next door. That girl was obsessed with Tim, like she was under a spell. She was constantly stuffing love letters in his desk and threatening me to stay away from him, or she'd make me look good. I already looked good enough, thank you very much. So I went to ask Tim what to do. Tim's response, what do you mean, what to do? I hired you to solve problems, not create them. Back then, I didn't know the term evil capitalist. I just thought Tim was incredibly stuck up. With no other choice, I went to the principal. 2 sentences were all it took. His daughter got such a lecture from her dad that she didn't dare come near Tim for 2 whole days. But only for 2 days. She stopped bothering Tim and started bothering me instead. And she brought back up. Ava Lynn, what did you say to my dad? He made me kneel for a whole day and night. I spit out the blade of grass I was chewing, unzipped my jacket, and threw it off along with my school bag. If you want to fight, just say so. What's with all the talk? The girl's nose scrunched up in fury. She shrieked, hold her down. I'm going to teach her a lesson myself. The result was no surprise. I got my ass kicked. Just as the principal's daughter was about to slap me a few times herself, Tim arrived with the police. I clutched my broken arm and asked him why it took him so long. Tim's hand, which was applying medicine, paused. I thought you'd win. I exploded. Tim Vance, don't tell me you watched for a while before calling the cops. He gently pressed a cotton ball soaked in iodine onto my wound, his voice betraying no guilt. You're so tough, Ava. I thought you'd take care of them in 5 minutes. Tim let out a soft TSK, and I felt deeply insulted. Damn it. Tell those punks to get back here. I'm ready for round 2. I shot to my feet, but he frowned and grabbed my wrist. Ava, sit down. I'm not done with your wounds. His dry, warm palm wrapped around my skin, and the spot felt like it had been seared by a spark. It was burning hot. I pulled my hand back, scratched my head, spun around, and sat back down, trying to make conversation. "Oh, okay. Be gentle. It kinda hurts." Tim frowned slightly. "Does it hurt a lot?" He leaned closer, his clear, handsome features suddenly filling my vision. My mouth opened, and a sentence just popped out. "Do you want to be my boyfriend?" Tim paused, his eyes lowered, and said without a moment's hesitation, "No." "Okay." I stared straight at him. "I'll ask again next time." Tim pressed his lips together and changed the subject. "What did you say to the principal? Why would he listen to you like that?" "Oh, nothing. That old creep tried to lure me into his office with candy once. I recorded him. He hasn't dared to get close to a girl since." I scoffed. "The old bastard is still scared of me to this day." A sharp pain shot through my cheek. Tim pressed the cotton ball directly onto my wound, making me yelp. "Next time you have a problem you can't solve, tell me. Don't take matters into your own hands." I glared at him with watery eyes. "Didn't you say you hired me to solve problems, not create them?" Tim's fingers stilled. His throat moved, and he said in a low voice, "Sorry. I was kept in the hospital for observation." The principal brought his daughter to apologize and promised to cover all my medical expenses. As for Tim, he disappeared for 3 whole days. When he came back, he brought the news that the principal had been fired. I reported him so many times, but nothing ever happened. "Tim, you're amazing." I excitedly grabbed his wrist. His face instantly paled, and a muffled grunt escaped his lips. "What's wrong with you?" I frowned, pushed up his sleeve, and saw a huge patch of black and blue bruises. "Who did this to you?" I ripped out my 4 and started heading for the door. "Was it those bastards? Watch me destroy them today." "It wasn't them." Tim grabbed my hand, gently pressing on the needle mark. "My dad did it. He's in New York. You can't destroy him." I was speechless and didn't dare ask more. Rumors had been flying around town for a while that Tim was the illegitimate son of some big shot in New York and had been exiled here after the man's wife found out. My gaze on Tim became even more sympathetic. He was covered in injuries that looked like they were from a whip. My grandma was heartbroken when she was putting medicine on him. She had a soft spot for kids and couldn't stand to see them hurt. She cried as she rubbed liniment on his back. Her tears even managed to soften the iceberg that was Tim. He said in a choked voice, "Grandma, I'm okay. It doesn't hurt." Grandma wiped her tears and took his hand. "Child, you're too skinny. From now on, come eat at my house. If your dad won't take care of you, Grandma will." Tim didn't say anything, but his eyes turned red. Tim ate at my house for 2 years. He'd wait for me after school, and he'd help me with my homework on weekends. A lot of people asked if I'd finally won him over. I must have asked him 800 times if he wanted to be my boyfriend. His answer was always the same, no. I was out of ideas. I could only treat him as a friend. Until the second semester of our senior year, the week before our final exams, we skipped class with some friends to get barbecue. A few beers went straight to our heads, and we were all lying around on the grass, chatting. Tim, who didn't talk much, had his arm over his eyes like he was asleep. I scooted over to him, poking his arm and telling him to look at the stars. Tim moved his arm. He lifted his long lashes, but instead of looking at the sky, he looked at me. I was momentarily stunned, staring into his dark, calm eyes. "Look at the stars," I mumbled. Tim's lips curved slightly, his voice raspy. "I am." The alcohol was making my cheeks flush with heat. I straddled his waist, leaned over him, and asked, "Tim, can I kiss you?" He was taken aback for a second, then gave a helpless smile. "Ava, our exams are next week." "What does that have to do with anything?" "A kiss isn't going to get me pregnant." I pressed closer, refusing to give up. Tim turned his head away and said softly, "I killed my mom and my grandparents. If you get close to me, you'll become unlucky too." Well, that's a coincidence. The old blind man on the west side of the street said I have great fortune and I'm going to make $100 million. Being that rich sounds exhausting. I need someone like you to balance things out. I turned his face back towards me and kissed him without hesitation. The next second, I was snoring in his arms. The next day, my friends showed me a video they'd secretly recorded. That's how I found out I'd taken advantage of Tim. I offered to make it official, but he rejected me again, mercilessly. Tim started to distance himself from me. He stopped coming to my house for dinner and no longer waited for me after school. He became incredibly cold, treating me no differently than any other stranger. My temper flared, and I started ignoring him too. We began a cold war that lasted for 3 months. We didn't even wish each other good luck on our exams. After the exams, I found out my mom was getting remarried. I wanted to go to her wedding, but she told me she just wanted to live a quiet life. After I hung up the phone, I got very sick. During that hot, humid, rainy season, my life was once again overgrown with moss. My grandma asked Tim to take me to the hospital. In the pouring rain, the young man carried me on his back and ran. In the taxi, I was shaken awake. It took me a moment to realize that it was Tim who was trembling. "Tim, I'm fine. Don't be scared." I took his hand. The next moment, he gripped it tightly. "Ava, don't you die. It's my fault. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have liked you." It was the middle of a scorching July, but his hand was ice cold. I knew it. This guy had feelings for me all along. I wanted to smile, but I had no strength. I could only gently scratch his palm. For the next few days, Tim was out from morning till night. Every day, he'd bring me a good luck charm from some place I didn't know. He looked exhausted, but he was completely obedient to me, even letting me kiss and touch him. I thought we would naturally get together. But before I was even discharged from the hospital, Tim had to leave. He said he was the eldest son of the Vance family in New York and he had to go back now. I asked him what about me. Tim stood under the light, his eyelashes casting a small shadow on his eyelids. He said in a low voice, "I'll have the best counselors help you with your college applications. If all goes well, you'll study in Boston. After graduation, you can work for the Vance family. I'll give you the highest. And watch you get married and have kids, is that it?" I cut him off, my voice trembling. "Tim, are you trying to get revenge on me like I'm your enemy?" His throat bobbed, but he didn't dare to look at me. "Ava, this is all I can give you." I didn't say anything, burying my face in my hands. The golden koi from the big city was always destined to leap over the dragon gate. What could my small, shallow pond do to keep him? After Mrs. Vance came to talk me out of it, Tim left without a second thought. I wasn't so proud as to refuse the opportunities the Vance family provided. While studying in Boston, I worked tirelessly to build my resume, always avoiding the Vance Corporation. After graduation, I found a good job. When I got my first paycheck, I was so happy I didn't know who to tell. I ended up on a pedestrian bridge, crying and singing like a crazy person. Later, I was bullied at work, so I quit and went back home to recover. Half a year later, with all my savings, I moved to New York and started my own business without looking back. I figured I'd either climb to the top and have it all, or jump into the ocean and have nothing. And that brings us to today. Tim told his driver to stay behind and insisted on driving me home himself. The car was filled with a woody incense, the same scent that clung to him. Remembering the stupid things I'd said in the hotel lounge, my cheeks burned. I wished I could jump out of the car and run away. "Where do you live?" Tim's low, husky voice suddenly broke the silence. He handed me his phone. "Put in the directions." I fumbled to open it and asked instinctively, "What's the password?" He answered naturally, "Your birthday." I froze, my eyes instinctively darting towards him. Tim was focused on driving, as if he hadn't noticed my gaze. I looked down, typed in my birthday, and successfully unlocked the phone. After entering my address, Just as I was about to hand the phone back to Tim, a notification popped up at the top of the screen. When do you want to go pick out wedding rings with me? The sender was Zoe. It sounded so intimate. I don't know what I was thinking. My mind was a mess, and a chill ran through me from head to toe. I mechanically handed the phone back to him. Right. Tim didn't like me 7 years ago, of course he wouldn't like me now. He had a family business to inherit. Having a fiancé was the most normal thing in the world. I don't know why I was being so dramatic, acting like I was the heroine in some TV drama. The car pulled up to my building. I got out and gave him a polite thank you and goodbye. Aren't you going to invite me up? Tim stared at me, showing no intention of leaving. I can't. My boyfriend's here. I stood on the steps, meeting his gaze. Tim stared at me for a long time. After a moment, he looked down and smiled. Then that's not appropriate. I wish you the best. Goodbye. He didn't open his car door. Without another moment of hesitation, he started the car. Feeling the cool night breeze, I leaned against the wall, dejected. Why did I tell that lie? I didn't even know myself. It was like I was trying to compete with him, to show him how happy my life was. A completely meaningless gesture. The next day, to make payroll for my employees, I was up at 6 for my first job, at my second job by 10, and at my own company in the afternoon handling business. I was dog-tired, with no room in my brain for romance. But as soon as night fell, the emotions came crashing back. The music in the bar was loud. I swallowed a mouthful of alcohol, the taste bitter on my tongue. Chloe, if the company doesn't pick up soon, I think I'm going to leave town. My best friend was stunned. What happened? Ava, if you need money, just tell me. I have some savings. I can help you out for a bit. She started to reach for her bank card. I quickly stopped her and said with a bitter smile, it's not that. I ran into Tim. He's getting married. My friend was at a loss for words, not knowing how to comfort me. But, Ava, you've worked so hard for so long. Are you really going to give it all up because of him? I closed my eyes, running my fingers through my hair, and shook my head gently. Chloe, if I stay here, I'll definitely run into him. And if I don't, I might create opportunities to. I'm terrified of going down that rabbit hole, of hoping his marriage falls apart, of hoping I can become more important to him than his wife. It's disgusting, but I can't guarantee I'll stay sane. My friend was silent, then gently squeezed my hand. Then I'll stay with you. One day, you'll forget him completely. Will I ever forget him completely? I don't know. Tim dominated my teenage years. The mark he left is too deep for me to erase on my own. At midnight, I was about to head home when I ran into Evan, out with a few of his degenerate friends. He didn't see me, and I had no intention of engaging with him. Tim had told me what happened last time. Evan had thought I was Tim's mistress and wanted to use me to get closer to the Vance family. But a woman who was secretly in love with Tim overheard, got jealous, and orchestrated the scene at the party. I was in no position to mess with the Evans family. Just as I was about to leave, I heard Evan scoff. I was an idiot to believe that woman. Everyone knows that guy from the Vance family not only has a cursed fate that kills his relatives but was also assaulted by some old man when he was exiled. He looks all glamorous on the outside, but he's just rotten on the inside. You shouldn't be spreading that stuff around. We don't know the real story, one of his friends said, frantically trying to signal Evan to shut up. Evan was drunk and raised his voice. Mr. Vance handled that incident himself. Everyone knows about it. I froze on the spot, my head buzzing. No wonder the principal at Northwood High was dealt with so quickly back then, and his daughter disappeared without a trace. So that's how a still young Tim helped me and those other girls. Evan was still shouting. I have to say, the Vance family has good genes. If it were me, I'd want a taste of that too. Before he could finish his sentence, there was a loud crash. Shards of glass rained down. Evan instinctively touched his forehead and came away with a hand full of blood. Everyone saw a woman holding a broken bottle, glaring at Evan, and saying word by word, "Say one more goddamn word, and I'll rip your mouth off." Evan recognized me and sneered. "Ava, do you really think you and Tim have something going on? You think anyone would even dare to collect your body if you died here tonight?" I brushed the stray hair from my eyes and let out a short laugh. "You're welcome to try. Honestly, in a fair fight, a loser like Evan who's probably never set foot in a gym wouldn't stand a chance against me. But the bastard plays dirty. He grabbed a fistful of my hair and wouldn't let go. But I'm even dirtier. I went straight for his family jewels." Pushed to the edge, Evan grabbed a stool and started swinging it at me. Fueled by alcohol, he was like a madman. Worse, I was almost out of energy. I was pinned to the ground. Evan's hands were around my neck, his eyes bulging as if they were about to pop out. "Bitch. I'm going to kill you tonight." I fumbled on the floor for a glass and smashed it against the back of his head. I put all my strength into it. Evan went limp and collapsed. I gasped for breath, crawling up from the floor and wiping the blood from my face. Evan came to his senses, staggered to his feet, and lunged at my face with a piece of broken glass. Suddenly, the door was kicked open. Evan froze for a second, just long enough for a man who had just arrived, looking like he'd been through hell and back, to kick him square in the chest. Before I could process what was happening, I was pulled into a cool embrace. Tim held me tightly, his voice trembling. "Ava. Can't you ever stop getting into fights?" Tears instantly welled up in my eyes. I sobbed, "I don't fight anymore." "But he was saying horrible things about you." I had to. The man sighed, cupped my face, and gently wiped away my tears. "Silly girl. If you hear them talking about me, just come tell me. Don't go rushing in head first by yourself next time, okay?" I nodded and said in a small voice, "I'm not as hurt as he is." I won. Tim stroked my head and smiled helplessly. "Yes, I know." Then he commanded, "Alex, take her upstairs and patch her up." Alex, who had been grinning from ear to ear behind him, immediately took my arm. "You got it. I'll take care of your wife. You go do what you gotta do." Tim took off his suit jacket and draped it over me. He forcefully ripped off his tie, wrapping it around his hand, then gently brushed my cheek with his other hand, his eyes soft and smiling. "Go on. I'll be done in a minute." From downstairs, I could hear the occasional sound of breaking glass. I tried to listen closely, but Alex kept distracting me. "Ava. You have to tell me, is Tim a virgin or not? Please. We bet a whole stable on it. I really want it." I bit my lip and said quietly, "I don't know. Well, for as long as I've known him, I've never seen a single female creature around him." Alex leaned in. "The main question is, back in your hometown, did you two ever?" He gave me a sleazy-looking eyebrow waggle. "Doesn't he have a fiancé?" I couldn't help but ask. Alex looked confused. "Fiancé? Since when? Zoe?" He looked even more confused. "Isn't that his sister?" I froze. So it was his sister. Ava, please just tell me." Alex was wiggling around me like a caterpillar. I hesitated for a moment, then said, "We never did. We were just kids back then." "Really?" Alex nearly jumped out of his skin. "You guys were playing the pure love game for real." He was about to ask something else when the door was pushed open. A cool voice said, "Alex, get out. TCH, I'm not hanging out with you pure love warriors anyway. At least I won the stable." The room was empty except for the two of us. Tim stood at the door, looking down as he unwrapped the bloody tie from his hand. I couldn't help but watch him. The man was the lean in clothes, muscular without type. His shirt was in disarray, revealing a broad chest. Tucked into his sharp suit pants, it highlighted his wide shoulders and narrow waist, creating a very smooth silhouette. He was the kind of man that made your knees weak just by looking at him. Perhaps my stare was too intense. Tim looked up and raised his left eyebrow. "What are you looking at?" I stood up and walked towards him. "You don't have a wife." "What's wrong with me looking?" Tim's eyes darkened. He let out a short, sharp laugh. "I'm just afraid your boyfriend will show up and punch me in the face." So he was jealous. I held back a laugh, stood on my toes, and wrapped my arms around his neck, my gaze drifting over his lips. "My boyfriend is very generous. He won't mind." Tim's body went stiff, his voice raspy. "What's that supposed to mean?" I leaned in closer, my nose almost touching his, and drew out my words. "It means... Can I kiss you?" Our breaths mingled, our skin inches apart. Tim's chest rose and fell rapidly as he stared into my defiant eyes. Then, as if surrendering, he closed his eyes, clasped my waist, and leaned down to kiss me. Tim kissed me as if he wanted to meld me into his very bones, each kiss fierce and desperate. My heart felt like it was being squeezed, beating a chaotic rhythm against my ribs. We had no other worries, no other thoughts. Even if the world ended right then, it wouldn't dare interrupt our kiss. Like a 7-year journey through the desert, finally finding water. We desperately tried to drain every last drop from each other. Only when our tongues tasted the other did our frantic hearts finally find peace. In the sticky heat, Tim's hand reached for the hem of my dress. Just as his fingers were about to touch my waist, he stopped. I lifted my head from the crook of his neck and, sitting on his lap, looked down into his pained, restrained eyes. "There's no boyfriend." I brushed the hair sticking to his face away and said softly, "Tim Vance, in all my years, you are the only person Ava Lynn has ever loved." Tim didn't speak, but a galaxy of light burst forth in his eyes. That night, Cupid came to visit, and his arrow hit a bullseye. The next morning, I woke up in the hotel, but Tim was gone. I couldn't find him, so I had to ask Alex. He sent me the address of a temple. He also added a note: "Don't be surprised by anything you see when you get there. Everything he does is just to find some peace of mind." I was confused, but I made a note of it. The temple was in the mountains in the suburbs. It had rained recently, and the path was difficult to walk. In the vast fog, I saw a broad back. He was crawling up the mountain on his knees, bowing with every step. In that instant, all my confusion vanished. Why Tim was sent away by his family to that small town, why he didn't want me to touch him before the exams, why he said he'd killed his mother and grandparents and would bring me misfortune, why he was so terrified when I got sick, and all those good luck charms from unknown origins. How could a child ever stand up straight when the world's cruel randomness was forced onto his shoulders as personal guilt? I held back my tears, didn't make a sound, and followed him step by step to the summit. I watched as a monk sprinkled red beans and sticky rice on him. I watched his reverent, downcast eyes, as if he had finally found his salvation. I slipped away and squatted outside the courtyard, sobbing uncontrollably. When Tim came down the mountain, he saw me smiling and was a little surprised. "You're up so early?" I took his cold hand and pretended to be annoyed. "You disappeared first thing in the morning. I thought you were just into one-night stands." "Sorry, I heard the temple here is very effective, so I came to have a look." He smiled, took my hand, and slipped a red string bracelet onto my wrist. "I got this for you. For safety." I didn't call him out on his flimsy lie. I joked, "I don't believe in this stuff. I only believe in you. You'll protect me, right?" He ruffled my hair, his smile bitter. "You can't trust me, Ava. My mom died in childbirth because of me. My grandparents died in a car accident on their way to buy me ice cream. How can you trust someone like me, who's covered in sin? Don't you want to try again?" I shook his arm, smiling at him with narrowed eyes. "Try what?" "Try to see if you can really protect your family." I smiled and pointed to my ring finger. "See this? It looks a little empty, don't you think?" Tim stared at me for a long time, his throat working as if he couldn't find the words. What kind of? He fought to keep from crying, forcing a smile that was uglier than tears. Whatever kind of ring Ava wants, I'll buy it. I smiled and held out my pinky finger. Then let's pinky swear. From now on, you protect me, and I'll protect you. And we can't break it for 100 years.